She's over me. The claws in my heart, I can't let go, I'm breaking apart, controlling me, controlling me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Monday night edition of the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. If you're new to the show, welcome. If you're a regular, then glad to see you again. So hope you guys are having a great day. Monday's kind of behind you now, so hopefully it's just the good stuff. So I hope you're all tucked in and ready to go because it's time for bed. And Monday evening it is, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. As usual, the call-in lines are open if you have something paranormal that you'd like to share or something that we're talking about that you would like to chime in on, or if you want to just call and say hi, by all means, the call-in board is open. The number is 720-923-0500, 720-923-0500, and if you're watching on the screen, you'll see it right above my finger here, right below the Chrome Paranormal Portal logo, right above the on-air sign. So it is available, it is open, and if you'd like to use it, I'll do my best to answer. That's all I can say, but welcome to the end of your Monday. We'll now be commencing the Tuesday program in just a few short hours. Operation Tuesday will be well underway, so I'm going to do a bunch of stories tonight. Hope I got some good ones picked out that you guys will like and will entertain you. I got some really, really rancid comments today on an old feed. It was really, really old. It was back when Don and I first started playing with the idea of streaming live, and it was a Wednesday, and it was something about reality shifts and time slips, and we did a show. And we really had no idea what we were doing back then. And I'm kind of doing it right now just by monologuing a little longer. But the guy was like, when does this start? Oh, you guys think you're so funny, but you're not, and stuff like that. It's like, wow. It actually cracks me up. And, when I started doing these videos, I kind of thought, oh, man, how am I going to be able to handle the criticism, How am I going to deal with that? Because I'm kind of a sensitive person, I guess, not overly so, but a little bit. And of course, I hope people like what I'm doing. And when somebody doesn't, it's like, ooh, that hurt, But, I just responded in kind, said, thanks for your opinion. And, this is when we were first starting out. We really didn't know what we were doing. Hopefully we've gotten a little better since then. But, it was just acerbic content or comments. And, it was like, wow. I understand if you got some tips or advice. Hey, the show really wasn't my thing, and here's what I think. But it's just like, oh, you guys think you're so funny, and it's just these scathing remarks. It's like, wow, Is that really the best you can do? You got the whole internet, you got the world at your fingertips, and all you can do is run around being a dick, you know? So anyway, it was actually kind of funny, but I really didn't take a whole lot of offense to it because it was such an early episode, but it just reminds me because, you know, you guys have spoiled me. You guys have been so kind and welcoming and engaging and supportive of what we've been doing for so long. I've been, you know, surrounded by that when I do get one of those real, you know, socially challenged people, it just surprises me. It's like, wow, yeah, there are people like that, aren't there? So anyway, it was kind of bizarre, kind of funny, but again, it was such an old episode that I really, you know, it really doesn't affect me, and that's how I responded to the person. Look, you know, this is something old. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to shut a program down that I had open that doesn't need to be open, and it's going to be chewing a lot of my resources. So it's anyway, let's get underway here with some of the stories and see if we can entertain the hell out of you guys. I hope y'all are hearing me okay. I haven't seen anybody make any comments that there's any sound problems, but I have been real careful to test the levels before I go live, and I think I got it all dialed in again here. But if you hear any issues, let me know, please, because I don't want to go through, you know, as much show as we went through the other night when I just, you know, I was on autopilot. It's just what I've always done, and the fact that the program had changed things on its own, I just didn't even think to check it. So I'm trying to be careful again. So anyway, let's get to some stories here, and we'll see if see what you guys think of these. So the first story I'm going to read you tonight is coming out of Michigan, and it says, I remember when I was about 7 or 8 years old, my father worked in midnights at the Ford Motor Company. Therefore, he would come home late nights, early mornings, and one morning in particular, he came home tired but hungry and decided to make himself a sandwich. While in the kitchen, he heard heavy footsteps coming toward him through the hallway, and at first he assumed it was just one of my brothers and my mother or myself getting out of bed, but when he walked down the hallway to inspect, he found all of us sound asleep and snoring. He then thought perhaps he was just so tired that he was hearing things. About 3 minutes later, he heard it again, so he called out for my mom, "Diane? Diane?" When there was no answer, he walked towards the hallway again, realizing nothing had changed. He walked back to continue with his sandwich, and again he heard footsteps, so he jokingly yelled, "Knock it off, George." The footsteps stopped. So in our family, each time something strange happened, like lights turning on or off, touch lamps going off, televisions turning on and off, my family would simply say, "Knock it off, George." And the best part is, our family if our family went a week with no disturbances, we would say that George was on vacation somewhere. A lot of strange occurrences have happened with my family over the years. So, for example, on one occasion when my mother was younger, her father yelled at her to turn the basement light off. So she ran down and turned the light off, then head to bed. And my mother woke up to his booming voice telling her to turn off the light. And when he asked her to, when she insisted, she did turn the light off. My grandmother watched her turn it off and head back to bed. So this time when the light was turned on again, there was no yelling to be had at my mother, only at a ghost. My mother would come home from school and be home alone for most of the day, so to entertain herself, she would sit down in the basement playing. She left an apple downstairs to go up and get something, and not 5 minutes had passed when she returned to find nothing but an apple core. Oh, that's wild. She was walking up the basement steps one day, only to discover a woman under the stairs. Her hair musty and white, and her clothes were tattered and old, and my mother flew up the stairs faster than she had ever moved in her entire life. Later, after looking through old family photos, it was discovered it was her great-great-grandmother, that she had never seen her before that. When my mother grew up and was married, she was in the kitchen cleaning when she heard a noise coming from my brother's bedroom. And they were both in cribs and far too young to crawl out to make such a noise, and the bedroom was a small space with absolutely no windows, so she knew it wasn't the wind or anyone trying to break in. Walking bravely toward the bedroom, she discovered the top layer to her wedding cake in the middle of the floor. The top layer was sitting in a closed closet atop a few other things. The closet was still closed. Another such instance to happen to my mother was she was driving down the road with her then husband and saw a car sitting sideways across railroad tracks with a woman inside staring at her. Screaming wildly, she told her husband that they must help the woman and that they needed to stop the car. Her husband looked at my mother as if he had never met her, as if she were a total stranger, and calmly said, "There is no car. There is no woman. Diane, are you okay?" Confused, my mother returned her eyes towards the railroad tracks, and there was no car, and there was no woman. Wild. That's a lot of activity. Now, the interesting thing is the apple in this story for me. So if you lay an apple down and you come back and it's all eaten except just leaving the core, I would almost think, it may be maybe some of the things like Robin talks about, like house elves or house gnomes or something like that. Like perhaps they went, cool, left us a treat. And, maybe they're the ones turning on the lights. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure that ghosts don't need to eat apples. And I'm pretty sure that that's not really a regular thing on their diet. And I'm being a little cheeky, but that is pretty intense to see a very physical change like that. And what happened to the rest of the apple if it was a ghost? I mean, wouldn't there be pieces laying around or something? Or is that more of a trans-dimensional entity of some kind? I don't know. And maybe they do indeed need foods and stuff. So it's hard to say, but that's a very, very unique story. We don't hear that kind of stuff very often. I think it's pretty cool, though. I don't know what you guys think, but I think that's pretty awesome. I love when new things like that come up. It's just really, really fun to throw ideas at it. So let's get to the next one, shall we? The next one's coming out of Montana. This is Duke's area of the world. In the Big Sky Howdy from Montana. I don't know if this Duke is in here yet or not, but this one's going out to you, Duke, even if you're not in here yet. This one is Montana. It said, it's a pretty short one too. So I returned from work and decided to relax in the recliner in my house, and I ended up falling asleep. My wife came home from work, and I woke up for a moment, said hello, and then I fell back to sleep, and my wife left the house for about 45 minutes, according to her. And the next thing I know, my wife is waking me up, asking me if I had taken a shower. In a sleepy haze, I told her that I had not, and that I had just been sleeping in the chair, and she said that the bathroom was very humid, and the mirror was fogged up like someone had taken a shower. We were fairly baffled by it at this point, and some of the ideas that we had is that I was sleepwalking and took a shower. However, my hair wasn't wet, and I just have a hard time believing that I could take a shower while sleepwalking and then go back to sleep in the chair again. Our other thought is that I'd gotten up and turned the shower on and let the steam build up and then went back to sleep in the chair, but I suppose this is a possibility, but I'm not a sleepwalker and never have been. My gut feeling is that I did not move from the chair, and while my wife was gone, we thought perhaps someone entered our house, took a shower, but we have a big dog, and I really believe that he would have made some noise if he had someone come inside the house. Anyway, my wife is pretty creeped out at this point, and we're both just trying to figure out what the hell is happening here. Any ideas? Well, I don't know. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say ghost. I mean, I don't know. What else could it be, right? So there is some conditions with plumbing where, faucets can turn on, and it has to do with water pressure and maybe a weak valve or something like that. But if, you'd notice that kind of thing happening, more than just an occasional one time. That if it was indeed a plumbing issue, you would see that issue repeating. If this is a one-off kind of thing, I don't think that it's just a plumbing issue, but, I don't know. I mean, it does sound very weird, but again, you would also, I guess, assume that there would be other things going on that would have alerted them to a mysterious presence in the house. and not just a one-off shower turned on and nobody can figure out why. But then again, maybe it was somebody stopping in, somebody trying to give him a message, a loved one that's coming back in to check up on him and the family, and they just wanted to leave some kind of calling card. And, maybe it would make sense to him if he thought about it in those terms, like who would he have in his past that has passed away that may have turned on the shower to try to let him know they were there. But I don't know. I mean, those are the kind of things that I would think about. Is like, well, who turning on a shower, who would that sound like of all your deceased relatives or friends or whatever? So very unusual. Very unusual. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next one is coming from North Carolina, but let me just take a look and see who is in here now. I haven't looked at the participants tonight. Oops. I didn't mean to hit the top chat thing. I'm always really nervous with this mouse because it's still really flaky, but I think I'm getting the hang of it a little better. I just have to be really deliberate in my clicks. But looks like Julia's in here chatting. Diana is in here chatting. Our two of our three amazing mods. Let's see, Gemini Moon, how you doing? Haxer's in here. Hey, Haxer. Jess is here. Good to see you, Jess. Kenneth Christian, good to see you. Welcome to the show. Nellie is in here. Good to see you, Nellie. Orange County Girl, great to see you. All of you. I'm in here. Sarah's in here. How you doing, Sarah? Good to see you, as always. And Ken is in here. Ken's from Down Under. Good to see you, Ken. Hope things are great in Oz. The weather's warming up here, so I imagine it's finally cooling down there. And I hope your drought and all that crap is over and all the fires are handled and your snake problem's gone away. And then there's Travis Bridget. Hey, Travis, good to see you all. Thank you all for coming. Again, these lists kind of suck. I don't know if that's everyone that is talking. Oh, I see Diane is here. Hi, Diane. Good to see you. And she gave me a flag in the chat. And let's see, anybody else that I might have missed? Thought there was some more right after. There was some people right off the bat that were in here. Zero Mind. I don't think I said zero. Bigfoot Michigan Rob's here. Pam Edgerton is here. Then we got, I thought I saw, Lena's here somewhere. Hi, Lena. Aloha. I saw you put up a live stream today, but I didn't get a chance to check it out. But I looked at a little clip of it after it was already over. But now it's getting warm here, so I don't have to be quite as jealous. Hollywood is in here. How you doing, Hollywood? I don't recognize that name, but welcome. I'm glad you made it in. Anybody else? I just try to go through, because I think it's cool when you acknowledge the people that are here, and obviously I can't. Oh, Mike Cool. Did I already say Mike Cool? I don't know if I did, but good to see you, Mike. Thanks for being here. I just think it's nice to acknowledge the people that are taking their time to be here among us and sharing in the amazing chat room experience that we have here on the channel. We have the greatest people and the greatest community of chatters anywhere. I'd put our chat room up against anybody's. All right, looks like I've got everybody that I can see quickly here. So thank you guys for all of you for coming in. That's wonderful. Okay, let's get back to see what's going on in North Carolina. I don't know how haunted this is, and people who haven't read the last story, I hate when they do that. I put up may not know all of what I'm talking about, but here goes. Around last month, I've been having these dreams, and the same sort of dreams I've always had, but they've begun to have a different twist. Before I explain all of that, I have to say that they are tied into these other dreams that I've had. In these dreams, there's something about blood on my hands. That's creepy. The dream I thought was a reoccurring dream, and I have had it several times, always on my birthday, sometimes between. If that means anything, it's me being dropped off by my parents at this house. And where there's an old lady, okay, who is supposed to take care of me, but she wants to hurt me, so I have to run away. And the house is full of all these hidden ways to run, so I always manage to get away. and make it into the attic where she can't follow. I'm not sure why she can't, but only she isn't allowed somehow. And there's always something covered by a blanket in the corner, and I always wake up before I lift it. So I thought, just your typical dream, right? Clearly some sort of way of my mind trying to get me to figure out what I want by not showing me. And then the dream changed. I was no longer me, but some other girl, blonde, young, hurt. And she/I was the one running from the old lady. I, or me being the girl, was dressed in this white dress, laying in the dirt, and then we had to run, and there was the chant about blood on my hands. And I'm not sure what happened, but I woke up gasping. There's another thing for me now. I don't wake up screaming. I wake up gasping, which is better than before, I guess. So I sat down with my brother discussing this and the possibility that this is somehow connected to my other dreams, and the dream with being told to go back to the beginning, the blood on my hands. And then it sort of clicked with me. The reason my spirit/ghost thing, which is this man I've been dreaming about since I was 15, who I have conversations with in my sleep, who I believe is some sort of spirit, or at the very least no longer human, said to go back to the beginning, and he was telling me to go there, back to the first dream. I can remember having that, left with that same sort of feeling as one of the screamers, what I call the dreams that I wake up screaming. And I think this girl was there in that house, and the old woman did something to hurt her, and maybe this girl did something back to her and killed her or hurt her, and that would explain the blood on the hands bit, and maybe why the old lady can't go to the attic. Maybe I'm grasping at straws, maybe it does all tie together, but the fact is I've tried communicating with spirits, and all it left me with was a headache, probably because I'm doing it all wrong, but in my dreams it's different. I guess I need to learn how to talk to the things I see, to communicate, because seeing someone who no one else can see and you can't figure out how to talk to does not do much to assure you of your sanity. Either way, I plan to find this house that I've dreamt about, and I think it will hold all the answers. I have no clue where to start, and I'm waiting for spring or summer break to try, so I'll have time to find it. And I've been researching haunted houses, but nothing seems to lead me anywhere. So what I want to know is, it's safe to try to find a place like this. My brother says that he's coming with me to protect me from any bad spirits, and I don't think there's much a living person can do, and I think for the most part spirits don't want to hurt us. Is this making any sense? Should I go, or is it a waste of time? I need help deciding. And again, this is an old story from 2007, but I don't know. So the statement this person made that there's nothing a living person can do, of course I don't believe in that. I think we are very capable of protecting ourselves, but you have to master the fear. You have to cleanse yourself and strengthen your aura, strengthen your protections, and it requires a bit, and in every religious practice there's a training to handle spirituality, and to some degree or another, and in esoteric practices and in many magical practices there's all kinds of training involved in mastering the energy levels that requires you to, or gives you the ability to make these kind of contacts and have these kind of dialogues. Now some people are just turned on from birth, or some people have things happen to them that are incredibly perhaps traumatic, perhaps life-changing, but that automatically will crank up their energy and their ability. But for the most of us, it's a series of practice and meditation and purifying and cleansing ourselves. Because if you have essentially a troubled person has like holes in their aura, or a very weak aura or something. I mean, if you're dealing with stress and you're damaged and you're wrestling with, quote unquote, your demons, then your energy level is going to be pretty depleted. And in most of those cases of people wrestling with their demons, it's It has nothing to do with an actual demon. It has everything to do with their need to change old destructive behaviors, their need to reinvent themselves and rebirth and, come into their truth rather than hiding behind lies or whatever. And so there is things we can do, though, to protect ourselves. And oftentimes it can be just as simple as a simple prayer or, something that has a significance for you spiritually that you ask for protection, whether it's spirit guides, whether it's guardian angels, whether it's, a divine loving father or mother or whatever, a divine energy that you ask to protect you. I mean, these are all very powerful things if you believe in them, but if you don't believe that there's much someone can do, then perhaps you're right. But it's only by your own acquiescence to that. You're deciding whether or not somebody can help you or not. So there is a lot to be said for having belief in yourself or in somebody else. And, it can be empowering or it can be disempowering depending on how you feel. All right, so let's get to the next one, which is coming out of Wisconsin. Wisconsin. I used to look at Wisconsin every day. I lived right on the Mississippi River on the Minnesota side, and I could see Wisconsin on the other side of the river. And we always called them cheeseheads because, cheese is a big part of Wisconsin agriculture. And of course, if you follow the Packers at all, you'll know they sell those cheese head wedges those foam things they put on their heads. So it's pretty humorous, but actually Wisconsin cheese is really pretty amazing. Cool state. All right, so let's see what's going on in Wisconsin. My cousin, his wife, and 3 kids were on their way from Wisconsin to Arkansas. He was moving there to start a chicken farm with our uncle, and that evening before they left, our families got together and we had dinner at the local Chinese restaurant. It says, my cousin got a fortune cookie that interpreted something involving having a long journey, but will end up in the same place. On the back of the slip, it teaches one how to say the word chicken in Chinese. My cousin interpreted that to be a good omen for their trip because he was going to be starting a chicken farm. The drive was going to be about 10 to 12 hours, and having 3 kids, they left at 11 p.m. so the kids will be asleep nearly the entire way and not be so antsy. Several hours later, my cousin stopped at a gas station to use the restroom, and he left his 3 kids in the back seat, and his wife was dozing off in the passenger seat. And this was out in the boonies, and the time was about 5 or 6 a.m., and the sun was just starting to rise. And my cousin got back in the car, and he drove about another 5 minutes, and he suddenly felt the hair in the back of his neck standing. He looked at the rearview mirror to check on his kids when he saw the figure of a person with permed hair sitting in the back seat with his kids. He then turned around to see who it was, and the figure disappeared. Within seconds, his wife woke up, and she told him that she had the strangest dream. The dream was they stopped at the gas station, and there was a woman who wanted to go with them to Arkansas because her husband accidentally left her. She's alone and doesn't speak English, and my sister-in-law told her in the dream that they were in a hurry to get to their uncle's place, and they had 3 kids in the back seat, and there wouldn't be any room. And the woman got in the car in the back seat with the kids, but my sister-in-law dragged her out of the car, and they left. Then she woke up. That was precisely the time my cousin had seen the figure. So the figure of the woman in the back seat that my cousin saw, was it the spirit of the woman that her husband left her at the gas station in the dream that my sister-in-law had? Or was it just some strange coincidence? I don't know. That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild stuff right there. I mean, I don't really believe in coincidences. I think that, I suppose there are instances where there can be coincidences, but I think more times than not, they're more symbolic of something that needs attention or something to that effect. I mean, I think that all things in life somehow bring us to understanding, that and growth. But yeah, I mean, to see that figure and then to hear your wife say she just had a dream about some woman wanting to ride, that's pretty creepy. So that would make me think that, yeah, that was a real psychic experience for the wife to be dreaming about. And the guy actually saw the apparition there. So I'm hoping that it got dragged out. I don't know if it could be malicious or not, but I don't know. That's the kind of thing that would be terrible. So wild story for sure. All right, let's see what's next here. What's coming up next, ladies and gentlemen? All right, this one's coming from California. What's going on in California? I think everything's going on in California. All right, so it says, I waited in an area that had a picnic bench, picnic beach, with a clump of trees for my interview with a real witch. The area was somewhat remote, and I looked around and saw nothing around me, and then I heard some birds chirping from a clearing at this park, and a mysterious woman in black appeared out of nowhere and started walking towards me. She said, "Hi, I'm Donna. I'm your witch." I looked at Donna and said, "Step into my office. Let's do this interview. Have a seat." As I pointed at the bench, the park bench table, and Donna relates to me that she has been interested in the Wiccan culture since the time that she was in high school. Her screen name is a Gaelic name, and it's Babd, B-A-D-B, Badb. Badb, I don't know how to pronounce that. Babd is named after a Celtic goddess, Badb Catha, and she may take the name of Babd as her permanent craft name, but hasn't decided yet. The circle she belongs to is a sacred fire circle, which is having its Sacramento Mabon celebration 2007. It'll be an open circle and everyone is invited. And they will conduct a leaf burning ceremony to release negativity into the atmosphere. And each member and guest will receive an acorn, which represents future harvests. Donna's encounter with the Thor, the Norse god of thunder. It says the Thor. Donna tells me that she has become a practicing witch in 2003, and she has extensively studied the Wiccan culture and embraced it full-heartedly. She will never forget the time that she was with a group of Wiccans, and they were singing chant songs to the god Thor. The lady of the circle, named Belisama Fire, led the group into chant, and the more they chanted, the night became stormy. The presence of Thor was felt, and all of a sudden, it started to rain in buckets. The heavy winds blew wildly, and the tarp that gave them shelter blew to the ground, and when the chanting resided, everything went back to normal. They later learned that there was no other storm anywhere else. The storm only hit the location where the circle was. Donna joins HPI. Donna has recently joined HPI, which is Haunted and Paranormal Investigations, of Northern California as a paranormal investigator, and went on their 2007 Haunted Placerville tour. When going on this tour, Donna was surprised to feel a wall of energy in one of the locations she visited. But this is not the first time Donna has dealt with the paranormal. She's been plagued by the paranormal ever since the age of 16. When Donna first contacted me to write her story, an occurrence that happened in the fall of 1972 in Niceville, Florida, she sent me this in her own words. I lived in a double wide mobile home for 4 years with my parents in a mobile home park in Eglin Air Force Base near the Gulf Coast of Florida when I was in high school. At that time, if the military member was sent overseas for a short tour, the family had to move off base until the members returned. Oh, that's terrible. Wow, that's harsh. When my father received orders for a 1-year stint in Thailand in the early 1970s, we moved the mobile home to Niceville, a small town near the base, and my parents bought an unimproved lot and had trees taken down, electricity put in, and a septic tank installed, and whatever else is needed to improve the piece of property. And within a very few weeks, my father was off to Thailand, and my mother and I lived in the mobile home alone. I was in Georgia on a high school band trip when my parents made the actual move, and I got home around 10 p.m. a couple of days later, and my room was not set up yet, so my mother got me a pillow and blanket and set me up on the couch and in the living room. And that night, my first night in this home, my sleep was disturbed by multiple noises, mostly knocking on the wall and the sound of footsteps. I'd been in a similar situation when I was very young, and for some reason didn't feel afraid and just said out loud, "Please let me go to sleep." And the noises stopped. On the next day, I was in the backyard exploring, and I've always loved nature and became interested in a line of ants traveling across the yard. And I found their nest and squatted on my haunches to look at them, and I suddenly felt a hand on my back and was pushed forward to the point where I had to put my hands out in front of me to catch myself from falling on my face. I told my parents about it, and they just laughed at me, and nothing else happened for several weeks except once when I was pushed again, and this time in my bedroom while my father was putting some shelves together for me. When I was pushed, I nearly fell on top of him. For the year and a half that my mother and I lived in the home, there were many incidences, and we heard knocking on the walls, footsteps, sobbing from my room, bad smells like someone had died, light fixtures coming on by themselves when they weren't plugged in, a fire ant invasion, oh, that'd be horrible, in my mother's toilet, shadows in the window, and a blob of gray mist hanging beneath the ceiling. The sound of water dripping, the drops sounded like they were falling from a height not possible where the sound was coming from, and light switch sounds but no lights going on or off, and my name being called, cold spots, a feeling of not being alone, and even a full-figured apparition on one occasion of a very petite or young female with a long dress and lots of hair piled up on her head, much like the way ladies wore in the Civil War era. These events became more and more frequent as time went on. We also had a lot of other family members that visited during this time, and they too had experiences. The interesting fact about all this is that none of them, including my dad, shared their experiences with my mom or me for fear of scaring us. My uncle and grandma visited twice together and didn't share their experiences with either of us or each other. It was only years later that my family, including my father, shared their experiences with my mom and I. We were all in awe of the fact that we all had separate experiences that collaborated years after the fact. We eventually sold the place because my father received orders for Travis Air Force Base near Fairfield, California, and had no idea about any of the problems on the site since then. And we know the mobile home we put there is gone, and there's another in its place. That's the extent of my knowledge on these experiences at the time of this writing. The only information I have to offer now is that Niceville, Florida, was at one time a very small fishing village, and the lot we lived on was very near the water, and we can only surmise that at one time there was either a settlement of some sort or maybe a homestead on or near the property my parents bought. Let's see. It says, once I was home alone sitting in the den watching television when I heard my name called. I was sitting on the couch that was in front of a large window, and the voice sounded like it came from outside, through the window behind me. And I couldn't tell if it was male or female because it was almost a whisper, but not quite. It just said, "Donna." Another time, my mother, a family friend named Eunice, and her two teenage children, Sue and Jim, my friend from next door, Debbie, and I were all sitting outside in the backyard having a good time, and Sue, Debbie, and I decided to go next door to Debbie's house for a while, and Debbie and I walked around the back end of her house and through the front yard, out the gate at the front, hitch, and it says hitch in parentheses. I don't know what that means. The front hitch, and then to the road. And at the road we had to double back the other direction, as Debbie's house was next to the back end of mine, causing us to travel the length of the front of my house towards her. In the meantime, Sue went inside through the back door near the end of the house to use the bathroom, and I go into such detail to illustrate the time it took for us to make the trip versus the time it took Sue to reach the bathroom. It was starting to get dark, and the lights were on in the living room, and the curtains were drawn. When Debbie and I reached the road, we both, for some reason, looked towards the house, and we both saw a shadow of a male figure in the curtains of the living room window, and as we watched, the figure moved out of the window in the direction of the back of the house, where the back door and bathroom were. We both ran to her house and told her mother what we had just witnessed, and as we were finishing our story, Sue came in looking very white, and she said that while she was in the bathroom, she heard footsteps coming from the living room area of the house and walking towards the back. Time-wise, it was exactly the same time that Debbie and I saw the shadow. Once, coincidentally, while I was living at the home, my boyfriend and I had just returned from a date and were standing in the driveway when we both saw what we thought was some kind of UFO. It was a reddish light that just stood very still in the night sky and finally just vanished after a few minutes. Also, one dark moonless night, my mother and I were driving south on Sunrise Boulevard here in Rancho, somewhere between the American River and Folsom Boulevard, when we saw some kind of ship fly towards us from our right, and it made a large sweep over us and then turned back in the direction from which it came and flew off. It was huge, and the lights were in an elongated triangle pattern. It did have blinking lights, but was either too large or too close to be an airplane, and it was too dark to tell. If I were to hold out my hands at arm lengths to describe how much windshield space it took up, I would have to hold up my hands about 3 feet apart. Wow. Donna believes that she is an empath and her whole family is a magnet for the supernatural. From the time she was 16 up until the age of 17, she lived in a mobile home in Niceville, and she experienced ghostly encounters, as mentioned above in her blurb. And I discussed what she wrote to me about her experiences and asked Donna, was there anything else that was unusual? And she said one day her dad walked into a room and it was filled with smoke. Her dad thought it was a fire, and then he looked again and the smoke was gone. On another night, family and friends felt an icy cold presence move through the home. Donna's ex-boyfriend on another night noticed the flashlight dimming on its own, then the lights on the home came on for no reason. And Donna always felt presences at this home, and she wonders if the small fishing village that once was on this property had anything to do with the presences of this home. Donna goes on to tell me that 2/3 of her life has been experiences of the paranormal, and she has seen ghosts, animals, a luring ghost cat. I don't know what a luring ghost cat is, but she once saw a ghostly hand move the shower curtain, and she has seen shadow people move about the house, and once while laying in bed, she felt someone sitting on the bed, and it caused an indentation on the bed. All through her life, from her grandmother's home in Pocahontas, Virginia, to the mobile home in Niceville, Florida, to Castle Air Force Base. At this Air Force Base housing community, she witnessed the animal spirits, the entity that sat on her bed, and the shadow people, to her present home in Rancho Cordova, where there are at times poundings on her walls. Donna feels that her family attracts entities from the other side, and her connection to the Wiccan culture goes back as far as to her grandmother, who is known as Granny. Perhaps entities that dwell in the realm of the supernatural are attracted to earth people known as Wiccans, because Wiccans embrace nature and respect the earth. The earth and nature is filled with energy, and the harmonious nature of energy embraces the Wiccan culture and brings on energy entities to watch over them and to protect them. Donna is a unique young lady, and she is filled with stories of her encounters with the supernatural. So many stories that it would fill a good-sized book, and I'm honored to write a small piece of her life because I have met a woman who was one with nature, and she departed into the surrounding area of trees. I felt a small, gentle breeze go with her. And you can read more about this whole excerpt from, it was written by a gentleman named Paul Dale Roberts, and he's an HPI ghostwriter. And for more on HPI Haunted and Paranormal Investigations of Northern California, go to their website at www.hpiparanormal.net. Very cool. So that was his interview with an actual witch, which is, you know, I know that to some people that sounds sensational, but there's a lot of Wiccans all over the place. I mean, it's not an unusual religion, and it certainly is not, you know, it's not like they're a different breed altogether. But maybe in some senses they are. But I mean, you'd never know it to look at them, whether they're a Wiccan or whatever. They're just people. But I do appreciate the balance with nature and all of that. I think that's very powerful. I do. I resonate to that very much. Oh, good. I'm glad you liked it, Gemini. Thanks. I wish I'd written it, but I hadn't. I just found it for you guys. All right, so let's see. This one's coming out of New York. Let's see, how long have we been at it? 47? Yeah, we got a couple more stories, three. So New York, you know when you were a little kid and you had no one to play with? So you made up imaginary friend? Then once you got to be in your teenage years, they kind of just fade away? Well, I had at least 3 imaginary pals, and I had Chloe, Allison, and Andrew, and now I named each of them because of the following reasons. I named Chloe because she looked like me, and she was sort of like a clone, so I named her Chloe. Then Allison would be another name of mine if my name wasn't Alyssa. So she sort of was the girly side of me. And then there was Andrew, and he was like me, but a boy. And my name would be Andrew if I was a boy, so that's why I named him that. Well, I got all of these imaginary friends when I was 10 years old, but the other day the weirdest thing happened. I could have sworn that I saw Andrew, but in real life, not an imaginary friend, except he looked a bit different. I was talking to my friend in the hallway at school, but I kept on looking at the clock because I wanted to know when I should go to class, and when I looked for maybe the 8th time, I looked down the hall a little bit and I saw a boy just staring at me who looked like Andrew. And I said to my friend, "Do you see a boy leaning against the wall?" And she said, "No," when she turned around, "but I can see him, like really see him," when I was a 9-year-old. I always just pictured him in my head. I never saw him. That afternoon when I went home, I can see him everywhere, in the mirror, in the dining room, and in the living room. And I was getting really pretty freaked out, and I fell asleep in my mom's room that night, and when I went into my room at around maybe 1:30, I saw Andrew sitting on my bed. I didn't say anything, and neither did he, but I sort of communicated in my head with him like we were reading each other's minds, and this is our conversation, and I remember it clearly. Me: "What are you doing here? Why can't I see you?" "I got hit by a car. I'm a ghost now. I came to say goodbye." "But you're not real. I just made you up." "No, I was real. I just never said anything." "When did you die?" A week later, when you forgot about me." "Oh, I'm sorry." "Well, you had to. You were getting older, and, well, I gotta go now." "Okay, bye, Andrew. You were my best friend. Bye, and I know, and I will always." And then he left, just like that. If you don't believe me, it's okay. I even told my friend about him, and I will tell her that he died. Just tell me what you think. Well, I think it's different. So is that a thought form? Is that a I don't know. Is that what is that? Did she actually create this through her belief in it? I don't know. That's pretty deep. I don't have any real ready answers for that one. It could just be creative writing too. I don't know that it happened, but it's something I found, and maybe it's real. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a bunch of hooey. But if it is real, then perhaps her devotion and dedication to these personalities gave them their own reality of sorts. I don't know what to think about being hit by the car stuff, but I don't know. Maybe there's maybe there's cars in imaginary friend world. I don't know. I don't know how to qualify that or think about that. I don't know. That's a very unusual story. It's a unique story, but I don't know. Strange. This one's coming out of California. Looks like we're going to go the full hour tonight, ladies and gentlemen. I got 2 more left. This one's not too long. Let's see. When I was younger and still lived in the U.S. in California, we lived in a townhouse, and personally, I loved the small home, except for the bugs, but sometimes it freaks me out. When I was 7, my dad was reading to me in bed, a bedtime story, when suddenly my lamp started flickering on and off, and I stared at it and asked my dad what that was, and my dad, ever the Christian, smiled and suggested, maybe it's God. Well, I believed him, but still felt a bit freaked out. A couple years later, I had a friend over for a sleepover, and it was maybe 9 at night when my lamp started flickering on and off, and Elizabeth, my friend, asked if it was an old bulb, and I said no. My dad had changed it the other day, and we both got scared and giggling, ran downstairs, parking ourselves in front of the television. A year later, maybe, I was home alone and going into my room when, guess what, my lamp started flickering off and on. I ignored it, but on and off and on and off it went for about 15 minutes, and it was near dark, and I was too freaked to stay in my room, so I stayed in the living room until my parents came home. Later, my friends and I were telling ghost stories to each other, and I told them of my flickering light story. They thought it was really creepy, but said it was just a coincidence, but I don't believe it. Sometimes I feel that something was in my room. Even though I've moved now, I still wonder, why had my lamp gone all haywire towards night? Yeah, I don't know. Pretty cool story, though. Oh, you know what? That's weird. I don't remember closing that. Okay, 1 more to go, ladies and gentlemen. This one's coming out of Illinois. What is going on in Illinois? I moved into this house not long after my husband died, and it was formerly inhabited by a very negative woman who was also very promiscuous in allowing her boyfriends to move into this home along with her 4 children, her sister, her sister's husband, and their 4 children, another guest who wasn't related, and her own husband. That makes 15 people living in a 3-bedroom house. And yes, this tells you a little bit something about her. Her now ex-husband is... What? Her now ex-husband is my new husband. She is no longer living in this house, and her brood left with her. That's kind of hateful. Now, the story begins with a woman, Laverne, who died in this house several years ago, and she was my husband's first wife's mother. My first experience with her was something interesting. She would move things into their rightful places if I had left them amiss in a room, or she would sometimes open doors that could not have been opened by a stray wind. I've always been open-minded to such things, having grown up with the ghost of a young girl in my childhood home, but that's another story. Back to Laverne. She comes to my dreams on occasion, and she talks to me. If I'm sick, I sometimes feel her stroking my hair, and when I'm resting or nearly asleep, and I've never felt anything negative from her, nor has she ever threatened to become so. Now, the issue with this story is the death of my husband. He was killed in an explosion at work in Columbus, Missouri, We were separated at the time of the incident, but since that time I felt so guilty because I keep thinking if I hadn't asked him to leave, maybe he wouldn't have died. Since that time, I feel as if he's come back to where I am, and I can feel someone watching me, and it's not Laverne. And I know what she feels like and her noises, and she has a very distinct scent as well. Like rain in the morning, just very nice. Sometimes it smells like something is burning when I walk into a room, but nothing ever is, and I can feel someone standing near the door to my bedroom at night when everything is dark, and the smell of smoke always comes with it. I can't sleep at night since moving into the house, maybe 1 or 2 hours, and then I'm wide awake, though, and I can sleep fine during the day. This is very unusual for me because I've never been able to sleep during the day because of the light shining through the windows. My question is, could this be coming from my own guilty feelings causing this, or could he actually be watching over me? He doesn't feel harmful in any way, but it just makes me think and worry for him. Yes and yes, I guess. Could be him, could just be your guilt. I don't know. Good story, though. That's going to about wrap it up for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Did anyone have anything they'd like to say? The floor is open. Count of 10. No, I'm just kidding. I'm really glad you guys came out tonight. Thank you so much for being a part of the shows. As always, I'm just thrilled to see so much interest in what we're doing here on the portal and all the things we're trying to accomplish, and you guys make it all worthwhile. So thank you so much for being a part of every show, and like the video if you would please. That's a great thing to do, and it definitely helps other people see our videos. YouTube looks at the likes as whether they're going to promote a video or not. So if you like it, then it'll help it get promoted so other people can see it. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for tonight. I hope you guys had a wonderful day and a wonderful time here on the portal. I love you all very much. So be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day and just laugh as much as you're able. So I'll be back tomorrow night with some more bedtime stories, and then Wednesday will be upon us after that, and Don will be joining me for the Wednesday mayhem. So we'll see you guys then. Everybody have a great night. Love you all, and sweet dreams.